I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Silly Jedi! Silly Jedi!
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
Hello, what have we here?
Hello there.
At last! Where have you been?
Nice of you guys to drop by.
Ah, good. New acquisitions.
I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this.
Hey everybody, welcome to Star Wars Car Talk. I'm Maurice from Jedi Toy Masters. If you're not following us on Instagram, you should. So check us out over at Jedi Toy Masters on Instagram. You can also catch this show and all its previous episodes on not just on a YouTube channel, which if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and check out some of our other videos, but also on the official Instagram account of Star Wars Car Talk, which is at Star Wars Car Talk. That Instagram account is solely to house all of the episodes. So there's episodes on there. So in case like you don't want to open up the YouTube app because you're already on Instagram, you can just go over there and watch them right on there. But please, our main account is Jedi Toy Masters. That's where we live and breathe, and that's where we socialize, and that's where we, there's a nice little Star Wars fan and Star Wars toy fan community on there, both vintage and modern and everything in between. It's awesome. It's an awesome community there that we're a part of. I recently, a couple weeks ago, if you go to the stream, I'm going to link it in the show notes. If you're listening to in podcast form, I thank you, and I'll link it below. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll also link it below. A great Instagram account, Retro Rebel 77, amazing young man, teenager who is a vintage Star Wars collector, and he's been doing these really cool little live streams every Friday night called Kenner Corner with a K, and he's had guests on. Where they talk shop, talk Star Wars and all that. And it was really cool to be on a couple weeks ago, and had a blast. It's always cool. It shows, and one thing was for sure is that being a fan of something, specifically here Star Wars, but being a fan of Star Wars and having that enthusiasm to talk about Star Wars at length with someone is ageless. And what I mean by ageless, it means that I'm 40 years old. I have 3 sons, and yet I can sit down and talk to a 16, 17-year-old who is into Star Wars and into vintage toys and all that stuff, and we can be talking at the same level. Obviously I have a little bit more experience, like life experience or whatnot. But as far as Star Wars, being Star Wars fans and just being able to talk about something that we both love, it's ageless. So I just think that's really, really cool. And so I'll link it below so you can check that out. And yeah. So I had already started recording this episode, and then about halfway I went on this long tangent, and then all of a sudden I realized I forgot to connect the microphone. So that video is soundless. It's basically a silent movie. So I had to start it up again. So you listening now have the benefit of not listening to my ramble that I went on about nonsense, about nothing. I think I was talking about going to the gym and listening to podcasts at the gym or something. I don't even remember now. But yeah, anyway, so last week we did a video called, it's on our YouTube channel, G.I. Joe Surprise. And why G.I. Joe? Aren't you a Star Wars channel? Yes, we are. But truth be told, G.I. Joe, the 80s G.I. Joe, like the 1982 to 1994 G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, is my first love. It is undoubtedly my first love when it comes to toys. Probably when I was a kid, when I was like a baby and, like under the age of 5, there was probably like some other toy that I really liked. But then G.I. Joe came along, and it was the first toy line. It was the first toy obsession as a kid, where you watched the show, and you collected the toys, and you wanted more toys, and the more shows you watched, the more episodes you watched, the more you wanted the latest. Oh my gosh, this is like a new figure. Oh my god, it's a new character. Oh, it's a new vehicle. Oh my gosh, I need that. And every Christmas, it was like, what do you want for Christmas? G.I. Joe. Birthdays, what do you want for birthday? G.I. Joe. And I imagine it was the same for a lot of kids that were kids, because when G.I. Joe first hit the scene in '82, I was still a baby. I was 2. So by the time G.I. Joe really hit its stride, 80, 85, 86, and maybe even 87, I was at that perfect age. Maybe still a hair young, but still primed. I was 5, 6, 7 years old. So that was like, my cousins that were older, they were 10, 11, 12, maybe even 13. They were still into G.I. Joes, and they obviously had collected them a lot longer. So I would just come over their house and drool over all the stuff that they had, and it was a magical time to be a kid in the 80s. And it was like, you had, for the adults, had Rambo and Commando and Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these like action movie stars, and movies were all patriotic. You had Top Gun and Iron Eagle, and everything was about patriotism, and we kick butt. We're gonna fight the bad guys. And for kids, we had the equivalent of all that was G.I. Joe. Everything else was pretty much fantasy. I mean, you had your He-Mans and your Thundercats and all that stuff. That was great. I loved it too. But at the end of the day, G.I. Joe was like the most grounded action series, thing that kids had. And I say all that to say this, that I imagine that was probably what it was like as a kid growing up. Like if I was 5, 6, 7 years old in 1978, 79, and 80, when all the Star Wars Kenner stuff was hitting the toy shelves, it would have been the same thing. It would have been a completely different ballgame for me. Like I've mentioned before, I didn't really get to experience the toy craziness of Star Wars in stores, because it was kind of like already fading out by the time I remember seeing any Star Wars stuff in stores. Like I think I had mentioned this in a previous episode. My Star Wars figures that I have that survived my childhood, the few that I have, I bought them in one place. It was this like random store called Odd Job that my parents frequented, and it was the equivalent of like, I don't know if you're here in New York, like Amazing Savings, or maybe like a Ross. It wasn't so much clothing store. It was kind of like a, like a random store of things, like a step up from a dollar store, I would say. Like a cross between like a Five Below and a dollar store, and then some kind of, So it was kind of like that. And I just remember them having an entire little end cap of Star Wars figures. And it was basically the same like 5 or 6 figures, like just tons of them, because they were probably the ones that weren't selling. I don't remember how I got Darth Vader, but I still have my Darth Vader. But most of the other figures I got were Return of the Jedi figures, like from Jabba's Palace people. Like I have my Gamorrean Guard and all that. So those were the only figures that I had as far as Star Wars. And by that point, I didn't really get to really experience like the fanaticism of collecting all those figures, and of being like super excited about, oh my gosh, Star Wars. And if you're watching, we got the J.J. Abrams lens flare again this morning. So, but it's an interesting thing to experience. What I experienced with G.I. Joe, I just kind of wish I had experienced that with Star Wars. I did get a little taste of that in the 90s, obviously, and I shared those stories with you already in previous episodes. But I say all that to say this, that G.I. Joe is really like the thing that got me into that mindset of toy collecting. So my question to you is, what was that toy line, other than maybe if it was Star Wars, then great. But other than Star Wars, what would you say was the toy line that got you into like thinking about toys differently? Like not, and I'm not talking about like, oh, you know, that's when you started to collect them and like not open them and put them in cases and all that stuff. Because for me, that came later on. That came like in my late teens, in the midst of my brother and I collecting Power of the Force figures too, Power of the Force 2 figures in the late 90s, and on the heels of Phantom Menace mania hitting the stores at 99, that's when it kind of occurred to me and my brother, like, oh man, like we still want to collect these, but we may not want to open all of them but they're so cool, like we just want to have them. And then, you know, the idea was like, you know, obviously it's a little foolish to think this way, but the idea was back then, well, remember all those Star Wars toys that we never even got to get because we were too young? Like, people that still have those are worth a lot of money. Maybe these will be worth money someday. And that may still be true, but that was the mentality, and that kind of got us into appreciating them in that sense. I wish I would have had like an older brother that would have had that mindset with G.I. Joe, because G.I. Joe had like probably the best, I would say the best artwork, packaging of any toy line. Like the packaging for G.I. Joe, I think blows Star Wars away. Star Wars is still beautiful because it was like these beautiful photos, but G.I. Joe was just beautiful artwork that really captured the action and the movement and just the epicness of what it is. He-Man was another toy line that I think had amazing packaging, but G.I. Joe, man, it was quality and quantity. I mean, those toy shelves, when they were filled with G.I. Joes, figures and play sets and vehicles, oh my gosh, it was magical. It was magical. So G.I. Joe and Star Wars is the match made in heaven. And if you watch our last video on our YouTube channel, G.I. Joe Surprise, someone on in the Instagram community sent us over a box of basically just a bunch of random Joes. You know, some of them were broken, some of their parts and stuff, which is great because it gave us the opportunity to kind of put them together. I had a bunch of O-rings because those figures have that little O-ring in their midsection to keep them together. And my boys started recently playing with my old Joes that survived, because a lot of them, my G.I. Joes from childhood were given away by my parents. So there was this purge that happened when I was entering my teens, and I kind of like was aloof to it. And I didn't realize it until it was too late and they were gone. And it still hurts because I love my G.I. Joes. I had a lot of them. I think I had more Joes than any other toy thing that I had. It was mostly, my collection of toys were mostly G.I. Joes. And then like Ninja Turtles and stuff. But yeah, it was very painful. But what did survive, and what I was able to then recoup, like throughout the years, as my brother kind of started getting into, he briefly got into Joes, and we would play, and my parents bought a house upstate, and we would go up there and play with the Joes and stuff like that. And then they all kind of like lived in the attic of my parents' place upstate, which they live there now. So now my boys are like totally into it. They really like it. And it's another Hasbro toy that is now like on the rise again. And it's kind of exciting that here are the two things that I loved as a child. Three, if you include Superman and DC and like those superheroes. That was like the three anchors of my childhood were like the Super Friends, Star Wars, G.I. Joe. You know what I mean? And those three aspects of me, of my geekiness, my sons totally love. My sons love superheroes. I mean, they are Superman, Batman, and the Flash. Like, those are their heroes. They think mommy is Wonder Woman and I'm Green Lantern. They love Star Wars, obviously. if you check out our Instagram account, Jedi Toy Masters. And they now are really loving G.I. Joe. They even know the names now. Like, they're like, oh, Gung Ho and Duke and Scarlet. Oh, Mommy's Scarlet. I'm going to be Gung Ho. I'm going to be Duke. Oh, I'm going to be Roadblock. Oh, I'm Snake Eyes. And I'm just loving it. I'm loving every minute of it. So, another question. What do you guys, for those of you that are parents, have you guys experienced that, where something that you grew up loving, you find that your kids are now loving? What is that for you? Let me know in the comments below, and also hit me up on Instagram at Jedi Toy Masters and let me know. Say, hey, I just watched your latest Star Wars Card Talk, and I wanna, and this is my story. I would love to know, because I think it's just a beautiful community that we have, and not that I'm changing the channel, the format from Star Wars to Joe's, but I think every now and then I might throw in a little G.I. Joe-ness love in there. So, because I actually find that probably if you're a fan of Star Wars and if you're a fan of vintage Star Wars, chances are you're a fan of G.I. Joe as well. Especially if you're a child of the 80s. So I'd love to get your feedback on that. But that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, this week. You know, I have, that video up where we did a little unboxing. And I also have another video coming up, probably, if not this week, then next week, where we opened up a 25th anniversary Joe collector box, figure box that I've had since like 2007. And there's a little story behind that. So that video should be up. Probably, if not this week, then definitely next week. So stay tuned for that. Make sure that you're like and subscribed, and even turn on notification on our YouTube channel, Jedi Toy Masters, so you know, stay in the know. So that's it for now, guys. I wanted to keep this one short and sweet. I hope you guys are having a great week. Not a lot of Star Wars news right now, but we're excited because Bad Batch coming May the 4th, and who knows what else. So it's an exciting time to be a fan. Regardless of the negative stuff that has been happening and the negative stuff out there, there's still Star Wars down the pipeline for us. And, we just gotta, hope is our strongest ally here. So, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.